Hey guys, not too long ago when we released the Defiant 63, we also released a new motor mount for both the 63 and the 42. Basically, the Defiant 63 will use probably the 35 millimeter motor mount, and we also have a 28 millimeter motor mount that was designed specifically for the 42. Basically, that kit, the motor mount kit, includes two G10 plates that are milled. They are 1.5 millimeter thick G10, a center mount, a printed center mount. This is going to be the piece that holds the motor and then bolts into the G10. And we also included stainless steel hardware. We have 4 stainless steel cap screws, 4 stainless steel nuts, and 4 stainless steel washers. So let's go. The other thing that we've included are 2 pieces of foam. Okay, and if you're wondering what the 2 pieces of foam are for, these are the motor mount template. Okay, these are for lining up the motor mount vertically. You're really not going to need a template to line it up. You can use the motor mount to line it up horizontally, but it gets a little tricky to line up vertically, so we've included these 2 pieces of foam for you. And we'll go ahead and walk through this, and I'll show you what these pieces of foam are for. So basically, once you've decided where you want your motor mount to be mounted, I'm going to demonstrate on this Defiant 63 center section. Normally you would do this after you have all your cores glued together so that you can lay out all of your equipment and get an idea of if you need, where your center of gravity is and whether you need to slide that motor mount forward or not. But I'm just going to go ahead and demonstrate on this block right here. Now the first step is to go ahead and we're going to cut our notch in here to make room to mount our motor in. And basically we're going to use the motor mount plate as our template to figure out how far in we're going to go. So in this case I'm going to go with the default, which is just keeping the back edge of the motor mount flush with the back of the center section. So basically the depth that we're looking for is this depth right here, from the back of the motor mount to the front of this plate. Now this front section of the plate we want to cut into the foam and glue in along with the edges, both edges, to get a good strong bond. So basically this is going to give me my depth. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and mark in my depth so I know how far I'm cutting. Now the width of that cut is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be dependent upon the actual width of our center section here. This is actually for 28, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at the center section for a 35 millimeter mount. And that slot that we cut in here, we want that to be the same width here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just quickly find the center of my block here. This is a 7-inch, so 3.5 inches is my center. And then I'm going to just place this on here, line up the center and the hole here. Now if you wanted to go through, you could go ahead and do all the measurements and do the math. I'm not a big fan of that, so I'm just going to go ahead, lay that on and mark it off. Again, if this is a little bit too wide, it's not that big a deal. You'd want it a little better to have it a little wide than a little narrow. If it's too narrow, your piece isn't going to slide in well. So what I'm going to do is you go ahead and get a straight edge or a square. I'm just going to use this motor mount here because I know that this back edge is square. I'm just going to draw my line up here real quick. Do the same on the other side. There we go. And just complete this. Okay, so now we've got this center section that we want to cut out, and you'll note that it's smaller than the actual mount itself, which is perfect because that gives us the ability to slide this mount into the foam on 3 sides and glue it in. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and cut this. I like these clip blade knives. These things are great, and this is one of my favorites. This is OLFA, made in Japan. I got these at Home Depot. These work really well. Good sharp blade, and we're just going to cut down. You want to keep your cut as vertical as you can. Okay, perpendicular to the table. Cut all the way through the foam, and you want to cut all the way through the bed in the bottom, the wing bed. I think I need a little more length here. Just a couple of cuts. This 1.9 EPP cuts really easily. You get a nice clean cut. Okay. There we go. There's our piece out of the back. And we'll go ahead and pull this piece out of the bed as well. Okay, and this is important because you want to cut this section out of the bed. It's not as important how good the cut is. Out of the way, but you do need to get through the bed. Okay, so now that we have our notch cut and we have got this back in the bed, now we can use our templates. Okay, now the templates are set up to be used in 2 pieces. Okay, so we're going to take, there's 2 pieces. There's a thicker piece, and that's going to be your bottom. There's a thinner piece, that's the top. Okay, so we'll move the top off to the side right now, and we'll take the thicker piece and we're going to go ahead and set that right in our notch there. Now the top of this is going to give us the line that we need to slice so we can slide our plate in. Okay, so if you want, depending on how you want to do this, you can mark it using a pen and then cut it. But personally, I like to just lay the knife right on there and just slice through. And if you leave your knife blade right on there nice and flat, you'll be able to slice right in. Okay, but I have a special knife for that. These guys also make this guy. This is a 25mm blade, so this is a 1-inch blade, and this is just a massive, knife. I love this thing. So we're just going to just lay that flat on there and just work the knife in. Okay, and you're going to do the same thing along the front. Just cut your edge in like that. Cut over. There you go. And just slide that over. Pull that in. There we go. There. All right. So now we have our first piece cut. Now, important, keep this large piece set it right back in place. Now you're going to take the smaller piece and you're going to set it right on top of the bigger piece. Now we have our alignment for our second plate, and we're just going to do the same thing. I'm going to lay that blade flat on the top and just cut across. There we go. Like that. And just slide that over. And there. Boom. Done. That's why I love this knife. You can pick them up at Home Depot, or I got it at my local Home Depot. This thing is awesome. Use that for everything. Okay, so now go ahead and pull those out, get those out of the way, and we'll just go ahead and test fit our plates. Now, sometimes if you're using a thin knife, you'll find that just cutting these plates have a little bit of thickness to them. So, you know, the kerf from the blade might be a little thin. And if that's the case, what you can do is once you've cut them, just take a hacksaw blade and just run it into that same kerf, okay? And that's going to go ahead and open that slot up a little bit, just enough to get these plates in. So I'm just going to test fit these plates right now. And just slide that in. Yeah, it'll be a little tight going in. So you want to make sure everything's lined up. Everything's nice and flush along the back. Okay, that looks pretty good. And that's how you get them lined up. Okay, so now, what I like to do is, when I'm ready to glue these, I will go ahead and pull these back out, put some glue around the inside, slide these back in, and line everything back up. As far as glue, you can use white Gorilla Glue, Goop, E6000. I'm not sure that I would use welders, but I like, for motor mounts, I like Goop a lot. That's one of my favorites. So Goop or E6000 would be a good choice. Again, white Gorilla Glue is also a good choice because it's going to expand and fill a lot of those spots in. Now, the next thing I like to do while this glue is in here and drying is I'm going to take a little bit of tape here. Okay, take a small piece, and I'm going to take the motor mount insert. I'm going to put a little bit of tape just on the outside. Okay, and the reason I'm doing this is because I want to slide this back in, and if I've got some glue up against these edges, I don't want to end up gluing my motor mount in there. So if I take a little piece of tape here on each side where it might bear up against the edge, I'll go ahead and remove that. Now some of you are going to look at this and laugh a little bit, but this is actually not a full 35 millimeter motor mount. The full motor mount looks like this. But this is all I had left. This was a print that ran out of filament. I don't have any 35 millimeter motor mounts left. They all went out the door. And I was in a hurry to get this video done. I've already had a few questions about putting this in, so I wanted to show you guys how they go together. So while this is gluing, what I like to do is take this motor mount in here, slide it in, line up the holes, and put a couple of screws in. Okay. And what this is going to do, especially when you have the full motor mount, is that this is going to line everything up. Now you can come back and make sure that everything lines up. You put your straight edge on here to make sure you know that you've got a nice parallel lines here. Make sure that your motor mount is facing straight. Line everything up, make sure everything's pointing the way you want it, and then let that glue sit and dry. And when you're done, pull those screws out. You should be good to go. Now, I'll put the measurements, if you want to know the measurements of the cut width for the 28 millimeter motor mount, it's 62 millimeters from side to side, and for the 35 it is 76 millimeters. and I'll go ahead and put those in the description below, along with we'll go ahead and I'll put a link to this knife. I really like these. I've got a couple of them laying around. All the other ones that just don't feel right, but these, good locking mechanism. I really highly recommend those. All right, so here's one of the motor mounts I have with a Sunny Sky 2814 in it. And these motor mounts are designed so that you can mount your motor this way with the mount here, what I call outboard. So your motor's hanging back off of it. This would be an outboard mount. And that's if you have a prop adapter that bolts to the top of the motor. If you don't, if you're running a heli style motor or like a motor that doesn't have a prop adapter that bolts on, that has one of the prop adapters that goes on the shaft, you can take this centerpiece and you can turn it around. You can mount the motor in it the other way, which would be inboard. Depending on the collar that's on there, you may need to widen out that center hole a little bit if you have a wider thrust collar. So you can mount them either way. These 2 blocks of foam will be in your kit. They are different depth. These are specific to the 63, and there's a set that's specific to the 42. Those will be included in the kit. One note about the washers that are included with the kit. These washers are actually intended to go on the back here. So when you put your cap screws through the back of the plastic motor mount and into the motor, we've included these washers so that we can get a little bit better bearing surface. Okay, so that pretty much wraps it up for this. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and reach out to me or put your questions and comments down in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys on the next one.